I think I ought to tell you about what it was like in the trade unions and in the working class areas during the period when the liberation movement was active and there were no trade unions recognized by the government insofar as Africans were concerned. It was a period when the nationalists had come to power, the ANC was growing, the trade unions were active in campaigns. Many men were deported to the rural areas. They were endorsed, as they said in those days, out of the area and never allowed back into an urban area again. There were also the forced removals, where people were taken out of their houses in Sophia Town and Western Native Township, Alexander Township, moved away to all sorts of areas. Tear gas, police bayonets, charges by police, violence. There were movements in various areas regarding types of struggle. There was the Defiance campaign. We were inspired by their bravery, by their enthusiasm, and by the values. And there were people like me who did cross the colour line and had a great deal of comradeship with the people who we were working with. Whites and coloureds, Indians and Africans worked with each other. So they worked together as equals, as comrades, full of enthusiasm, and clearly believed that the struggle would be won. At the age of 15, I was teaching at a night school for illiterate people. Workers from all over Johannesburg used to come to the school, and I taught English and arithmetic, and did that for some years. As I became more and more involved with that and with the people around me, I began to drift into the liberatory organizations. It was natural that I would become more and more drawn into the struggle, and I wanted to become more practical. I wanted to be able to offer more than just that of a spectator or of a sympathizer. I wanted to be part of it. I worked with Betty du Toit. She had organized the Food and Canning Workers Union and had developed the concept of a social union, which is what COSATU is today. And I was offered the position of General Secretary at the age of 24 of the National Union of Laundry, Cleaning and Dyeing Workers. We took the example of the idea of a social union movement, and we looked at all aspects that were limiting the opportunities of people. And we organized strikes, we organized demonstrations, we organized campaigns for changes in wage patterns with a great deal of zeal, a great deal of enthusiasm and belief in the cause. Trade unions realized that there was not going to be any purpose whatsoever of organizing trade unions unless there was an attempt to achieve liberation. A strike was the most difficult event. There were lots of strikes. The problem was that anybody who went on strike committed an illegal act. And there were times when the police came and arrested people. There were other times when the police were just outside, knowing full well what was going on. There were times when they didn't know at all. I knew that well and participated personally at all the meetings, in the campaigns, in the efforts to try to draw attention to what was being done and to try our best to halt it. But of course that was not possible. And so the organization of the trade unions in the time of SACTU was a very difficult experience, but it built up trade unions, industrial unions, one industry, one union, and it paved the way for a new formation when COSATU was ready to take the disparate bits and pieces of what was left of SACTU and build that into a nucleus of the finest trade unions in South Africa as a social union movement. Thousands of meetings, activities all over the country involved the compilation of simple demands as to exactly what kind of society the people of this country wanted. There were endless little bits of paper that were written on, and these were all collected up over a period of a year and a half, and they were taken to Johannesburg. And there they were molded into different clauses that are now the subject of the Freedom Charter, and which is the basis of the Constitution of South Africa. And so I'm the last surviving signatory there. The Freedom Charter was adopted at the Congress of the People on the 26th of June 1955. The police were there in great numbers. Mounted police surrounded the entire conference, and they took the names of every single person. There were about 5,000 people there. So when we were arrested for high treason, the ultimate sanction of the state could have been the death penalty. This was the major treason trial in 1956. And that was a trial in which the state decided that there was a conspiracy to overthrow it. And I was included in this trial for a full 5 years. The 156 was reduced to 30 after the first year. And those people who were in the batch of 30 were Nelson Mandela, Ahmed Kathrada, Walter Sisulu, and it was myself, Lillian Ngoyi, and others. And so we remained right to the end. From time to time, we were on bail. From time to time, we were taken into detention. And there were 2 white people on that trial, myself and Helen Joseph. We had smuggled in a radio, and Helen had a very large crop of hair, and she would hide the radio in her bun. So we could hear the news, we could hear what was going on generally. But it was comfort to a lot of people who were in solitary confinement. I was the first person to be imprisoned on the 90-day law, which was detention without trial. I was arrested several other times on charges of breaking my ban, being found to be at meetings, but I always managed to win my case, thanks to Joe Slover, thanks to Bram Fischer, thanks to particularly Bezos. COSATU was a modern federation based on the values and attitudes of the International Labour Organization and progressive trade unions all over the world. And so they were able to take forward what SACTU tried to bring about, and COSATU certainly tried to bring about, a rules and value-based society, which, as a result of liberation and the establishment of the CCMA, to its credit, the CCMA was able to practically help to develop a rules-based society, a rules-based open system of industrial relation. I was in exile for 34 years. I returned to South Africa in 1997. As soon as I did come, I did ask the CCMA to offer me a job. And at the next intake, they actually offered me a job on the recommendation of the General Secretary of COSATU. Well, my first very impressionable case was the introduction in 2002 of a decision by the Cape Town municipality to reduce its workforce very, very substantially. And this was done in the face of intense opposition of the trade unions. So I, as I always do, ask the parties, why are we here? Please tell us why. Retrenchment discussions have set a new level of mediation in this country. We've got a lot to do, but we have done a lot already.